Then chapter 7 is a conclusion of the book, summarizing what I have discussed, and also referring a bit to some of the things that I think can help the South Sudanese overcome that culture, and if they overcome that culture, what they will realize or what the whole country will realize after that. Each chapter exhausts topics or negative behaviors related to them. In the end of each chapter, I provide questions meant to deepen the thinking of my readers on the issues discussed in the chapters. I provide some way forward so we know there is a way out, from all the things or the areas that I have mentioned or I have discussed. Now, I have summarized the book, but I have an appendix to the book, which I call it a bonus. There is a bonus appendix of the book where I pour my heart out for my people, not to remain or revolve around negative behaviors because of the past experiences or the like, but to move on, change, and realize peaceful coexistence for development. I hereby read the appendix. Let me read the appendix to you. It is like really, I am asking you, I beseech you, South Sudanese. I call it a heartfelt appeal. I am reading it. I consider it a good thing at this juncture to pass my message to you, dear reader, especially my fellow South Sudanese. The message below is meant to recall what we have been through, where we were at the moment, and where we are at the moment, and what we ought to be. I consider this message a simple, straightforward, and heartfelt message. Fellow South Sudanese, we have suffered a lot for a very long time. Our grandfathers suffered, our fathers suffered, and we are also suffering. Many of us were born in war, have lived in war, and are dying in war. Each one of us have experienced war in one way, in one form or another. We have lost to war people we knew very well, including our own family members. We and our beloved country have been identified with war, suffering, tribalism, diseases, and the like. When mentioned anywhere in the world, the names South Sudan and South Sudanese are almost synonymous with underdevelopment, backwardness, lack of education, poverty, and the like. When you hear a media house say anything about South Sudan or to discuss anything about South Sudan, you know you are going to see and hear issues about or topics about underdevelopment, war, suffering, disease, and the like. But until when? For many years, we have blamed the colonialists for our predicaments and suffering. We are not completely wrong when we blame them. We are right to some extent. Reading our history, we realize that the colonialists did not open the door before us the way they should. They neglected our territory and did not provide us with education and development like they did in the northern part of the Sudan. Their policies did not favor us the way it favored the North. I am not writing all this to instigate more hatred, but to let you be conversant with this reality. Many a times, we have severally asked the why question in relation to the decisions the colonialists made on our behalf. All this is because of the pain we have gone through for decades. We have also blamed and hated the Arabs in the north for our predicaments and suffering. We are also right in saying or thinking so. During our time in the one Sudan, we did not have the chance to equally participate in leading our country. We had the least opportunity when it came to leadership. Our southern region was least developed. Southern Sudan was neglected and looked like it was not part of Sudan. I personally remember one young journalist from Southern Sudan who had not been to Northern Sudan but had an opportunity to travel from Juba to Khartoum and other cities in the northern part of Sudan after the CPA, the Comprehensive Peace Agreement. When he arrived in Khartoum to attend a meeting in one of the hotels, he began to shed tears. When asked why he was crying, he asked a question, whether Khartoum was also part of Sudan. Everybody was amazed at his question. When asked why he asked such a question, he said, Khartoum and Northern Sudan were too developed compared to Southern Sudan. He saw for himself the economic and development disparity our forefathers fought against. Throughout history, we did not receive good education like our northern counterparts. We were kind of excluded by successive Sudan governments since the independence of the Sudan. Most of the predicament that fell on us were on the ground that we were not Arabs, were not Muslims, and were not educated. Again, I am writing this not to instigate hatred. Hatred will take us nowhere. During our lifetime in the United Sudan, we did not have the feeling of belonging to our own country. In fact, we always felt there could be another home apart from the Sudan. When looking into how our country, the Sudan, is today, South Sudan is today from the Sudan, when looking into our own country, South Sudan, where it is today, we still feel the pain of how we were disadvantaged in the Sudan. Comparing the fact that we were part of a country that was among the first to obtain independence in Africa, with the fact that we are among the least development in the world, pains us even more. Many of us are still angry with both the colonialists and the Arabs in Sudan. The suffering and the injustice we went through made us opt for independence. Throughout the history of Sudan, we opted and fought for independence or separation under the disguise of federalism, self-determination, and the like. The Northerners rejected the proposal of semi or independent Southern Sudan many times. Because of this, we opted for more fight to gain our freedom. There were also years of enormous sacrifice which cost lives of so many of us. All we wanted was to be free and peaceful, so we developed our own region, the Southern Sudan. Dear fellow country South Sudanese, finally, a new country, our own South Sudan, was born. We got the independence we had yearned for, and were all happy for the dream come true. This is the dream our forefathers fought for and wished to see. I remember how the streets of Juba were filled with jubilating South Sudanese celebrants on the Independence Day. Tears of joy filled our eyes and the eyes of other millions of South Sudanese, both within South Sudan and abroad. Many of the people who knew our suffering rejoiced and celebrated with us. We had reached the point of throwing our suffering into the river of oblivion. Dear fellow countrymen and countrywomen, you all know what happened a few years after independence. The suffering we had just buried resurrected in a different form. Maybe this time it was closer and severer. We manufactured this suffering ourselves. Yes, we did. We have ourselves, the South Sudanese, to blame for the post-independence suffering. If other people call us sufferers or suffering, we all know why they would say so. But I believe we are not. Fighting has caused us great harm. It has made us lag behind in every aspect of life. If we continue to fight among ourselves, we will not harm anyone but ourselves. If we choose war rather than peace, no one else will pay the price but us. If we keep blaming and hating the colonialists, the Arabs in Sudan, or other tribes, we will be the ones to pay the price. The energy we would use to build our country would only be wasted in hating and blaming others. Beloved South Sudanese, let us now learn to live peacefully. Let us search peace and pursue it. Let us learn to live together despite our different tribes and cultures. We should not know that South Sudan is more beautiful with its many tribes rather than with one or two tribes. We should then support one another rather than working against our own selves. Let us support those who are putting efforts to better our country. Let us support our government and all our leaders despite how we feel or disagree with them. It is our country, not others' country. No one will build it for us if we do not resolve to and actually develop it. In order to see the peaceful and free South Sudan we aspire, let us work and stand for truth. It is also truth that will lead us to where we want to be. In his book, Shaking the Systems, What I Learned from the Great American Reform Movements, Tim Stafford has discussed the social and political struggles America went through in early centuries. He found out that truth was at the helm of the struggle for justice. He says, starting with truth and sticking to truth is crucial. If you understand that activism springs out of truth, you must stick to truth. As Stafford says, let us stick to truth. The truth that will help us live and work equally in our great country, South Sudan. It is my wish that this message and book challenge us and create a light of hope and change us so we become the people we ought to be and our country becomes the country it ought to be. Let me end this book with a great quote by Dr. Chuba Okadibo from Nigeria. He says, if you are emotionally attached to your tribe, religion, or political leaning to the point that truth and justice become secondary considerations, your education is useless. Your exposure is useless. If you cannot reason beyond petty sentiments, you are a liability to mankind. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you everyone who put more effort to organize this. So, this is what the book is all about, and the appendix that I've read, it is there at the end of the book. I want everyone who reads the book, get to hear or to feel my heart by reading that heartfelt message which comes at the appendix. Because I may not have time again to say something, I want to thank you all for coming and the people who organized this, Jocelyn and the team, Joshua and Abraham there, and anyone who put a hand into this. Thank you very much.
We can clap together.